We are now looking at a machine with a fresh new copy of Microsoft Windows. Since I have no development tools installed here, I'm going to open my web browser and search for Web Platform Installer. When we search for this, we should find a link to find and download the Web Platform Installer. This is a free tool from Microsoft that takes care of downloading and installing all the software we need, including the frameworks and libraries, a web server we can use during development to host our application on this machine, and SQL Server Express, which we'll use to save data for our application. All I need to do is click the Download It Now button and wait for this to launch. Once the installer is up and running, you'll be able to choose one or more applications or products to install. I'm going to come into the search box here in the upper right-hand corner and search for Express, because I want to install Visual Studio Express, and I should find it here in the search results, Visual Web Developer 2010 Express. I'll click Add. If we look at the detailed list of items to be installed, we can see we also have some dependencies, and the Web Platform Installer will automatically download these dependencies. They include version 4 of the .NET Runtime, that's required by Visual Studio and ASP.NET MVC3, and it's also going to download and install SQL Server Express, which is a relational database engine we can use to store data. Let's close out this list and click Install. I have some licensing agreements that I should read through before I accept, and then some SQL Server configuration information. I'm going to select this radio box that uses Windows Integrated Authentication with SQL Server Express. That means I don't need to put in a password for the SQL Server Administrator account. And with that information in place, the installer is off and running. This is going to take a little bit of time, and it might need to reboot your machine, but we'll check back in later. Before I go, though, I do want to point out that the Web Platform Installer is now available on my computer. I can run it right from a Windows Start menu anytime that I want to add additional features or libraries or products to my machine. Now we've completed our installation of Visual Studio, but we still have one more step to take. We're going to be using ASP.NET MVC3, and MVC3 was released after Visual Studio 2010 was released, so we're not quite where we need to be yet. I'm going to come back into the Web Platform Installer, and I'm going to search for SP1, that's short for Service Pack 1, and I'm going to find Visual Studio 2010 Service Pack 1. At the time of recording, this is still in beta, but it will probably be in a release state by the time you watch this video. I'm going to add and install Service Pack 1, which will not only give us the ASP.NET MVC3 framework, but also a number of other goodies we'll be able to use in building our application. After some time, the Web Platform Installer will again congratulate you on successfully installing new software. And now we're ready to use Visual Studio for the first time. But before we do, let's take a step back and talk about the tools we will be using. What we've done so far is to use the Web Platform Installer to set up 3 essential tools we'll work with moving forward. The first tool is Visual Studio. Visual Studio is where we will write, test, and debug our code. It includes editors, debuggers, and shortcuts for all the technologies we need to bring together in a web application: C# code, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. We've also installed SQL Server Express. Later in this course, we'll see how to persist and query data stored inside a SQL Server database. And finally, we've installed IIS Express. This is one of the components installed with Service Pack 1 for Visual Studio. IIS Express is a lightweight web server we can use during development, and it doesn't require any special privileges to run. As a web server, this is the component that will respond to HTTP requests coming from our web browser and respond by executing the logic we build inside of our MVC application. Although we won't be interacting with IIS Express on a regular basis, it will be behind the scenes and faithfully hosting and executing our application as we move forward.